In 58 BC, a restless Rome looked north at the edge of empire, and Julius Caesar saw his chance. 8 brutal years in Gaul would remake Western Europe, shatter tribes, and forge a commander into a political giant. March with the legions from Helvetii to Alesia, and watch ambition conquer a continent. Section 1. The River Wall at Geneva, March 28, 58 BC. The banks of the Rhone at Geneva. Cold river mist crawls over the water like breath from a sleeping animal. You can hear it before you see it. The thud of axes into timber, the grind of spades biting wet earth. The shouted cadence of centurions keeping time. Roman legionaries, sleeves rolled, backs bent, are building a wall where no wall has ever stood. Across the river, the Helvetii watch in silence, their wagons strung out like a wooden city on the move. At the edge of the works stands Gaius Julius Caesar, proconsul of Transalpine Gaul, newly arrived, boots still filmed with dust from a forced march. By his side, his senior officers gather: Titus Labienus, lean and hawk-eyed; Publius Crassus, young but already stern; a handful of tribunes holding wax tablets, waiting for the word. Caesar studies the opposite bank. Even from here he can see the scale of it. Not a raiding party, not a tribe looking for plunder. A nation in motion. The Helvetii migration is not rumor anymore. It is a flood. They had burned their own towns in the high valleys weeks earlier. A deliberate act of desperation and defiance. The old world behind them reduced to ash so that no one could go back. Now they moved west in a mass of people and livestock. Warriors with long shields and spears, women and children in carts, elders walking stiffly beside oxen, priests carrying sacred objects wrapped in cloth. Their chiefs spoke of pressure from Germanic tribes at their borders, of a homeland no longer safe, of better fields in the west. But Rome hears only one thing: 300,000 people pushing into the heart of Gaul, a corridor that leads straight through Roman interests. Caesar has barely taken office when the crisis lands on his doorstep. He had been in Italy when messengers arrived, Helvetii envoys seeking passage through the Roman province. A simple request in words, but a knife in the map. If he allows them through, they will march along the Rhone and into lands Rome claims influence over, perhaps settling where Rome needs allies. If he refuses, he risks war with a people already committed to movement. Either way, his career has been handed a battlefield. He refused. He did not refuse with speeches. He refused with engineering. In a matter of days, Caesar's legions reassemble at Geneva, marching hard from winter quarters. He has only one legion in the province at first, the 10th, the same one that will later become the iron core of his army. He calls up auxiliaries from nearby tribes, orders supplies seized, and sends riders to summon more legions from Cisalpine Gaul. The Helvetii, impatient, send envoys again. Caesar meets them formally. The Roman sources will later say their chief spoke calmly, insisting they wish only to pass peacefully. Caesar listens, expression unreadable. He asks for time to consider, a delay that buys him everything. While the Helvetii wait, Roman soldiers cut down trees, drag their trunks with chains, and hammer stakes into the riverbank. The Rhone is not a frontier river by nature, but Caesar decides it will be. From Lake Geneva to the Jura foothills, nearly 19 miles, a barrier rises. A ditch, a rampart, a palisade of sharpened wood, watchtowers at intervals. The work is brutal and rapid, the kind of project only a disciplined army can achieve. The Helvetii watch this wall grow and begin to understand. Rome is not negotiating. Rome is sealing a door. When Caesar gives his answer, it is final. He will not permit passage through the Roman province. The envoys return to their people with the words, and the sight of a wall to prove them. A murmur passes through the wagon lines. Some Helvetii chiefs are stunned. This province is a strip between mountains and river. It was the obvious road west. They had expected Rome to accept their gold and look away. That is how border powers behave with migrants and armies far from their own cities. Caesar is not behaving like a border power. He is behaving like a man who sees an opening. The Helvetii test the barrier almost immediately. Small groups approach the river at night, trying to lash boats together or ford at shallows. They are met by pila and arrows from the towers, driven back by volleys and disciplined shouts. A few attempts grow bolder, warriors massing behind shields to rush the bank, only to find Roman ditch and palisade a killing field. Each failure deepens their disbelief. These are not weak provincial troops. This is a Roman army acting like a blade pressed against their chest. Inside the Roman camp, Caesar moves like a craftsman assembling a tool. He writes letters in the lamplight, dispatching cavalry to scout alternative Helvetii routes. He speaks with local Gaulish leaders, measuring which ones fear the Helvetii more than they distrust Rome. He studies the geography, the rivers, forests, and passes that define movement in this land. He knows the Helvetii will not turn back. They have already burned their homes. If this road is closed, they will find another, and they do. They swing north toward the Sequani, negotiating passage through narrow mountain corridors near the Jura. It is harder, slower, but possible. Their long column begins to funnel away from the Rhone, leaving the Roman wall behind like an insult carved in timber. To them, it is a betrayal, a superpower blocking a desperate people. To Caesar, it is perfect. He has turned their migration into a controllable target. When scouts report the Helvetii column moving through Sequani lands, Caesar does not hesitate. He leaves a garrison under Labienus to hold the river wall, then races back into Italy to gather his remaining legions. The province must be defended, yes. But more importantly, opportunity must be pursued. He is not just stopping a migration now, he is stepping onto a stage. The Helvetii think they are escaping a blockade. They do not yet understand they have entered a war. Section 2. The Chase along the Saône. Early April, 58 BC, northern Italy. The spring roads are still half wet from thaws. Caesar rides through them without softness, pushing his escorts at the speed of emergency. At every town he passes, horns sound and doors open. The machinery of Roman logistics waking up for a campaign none of them expected a month earlier. 2 more legions are already waiting in Cisalpine Gaul. He levies 2 more to bring his force to 6. Veterans, raw recruits, allied cavalry, all pulled together under one purpose: intercept the Helvetii before they can plant themselves in western Gaul. Caesar crosses the Alps not as a governor now, but as a commander hunting prey. He arrives in Gaul in time to hear the echo of panic spreading among Roman allied tribes. Helvetii foraging parties strip fields bare. Villages flee to hilltops. Messengers with dusty hair stumble into Caesar's camp, begging him to stop the migration before it becomes occupation. He agrees, but not in the way they expect. He does not rush blindly after the Helvetii column. He shadows it like a wolf shadows a herd, waiting for the moment when bulk becomes weakness. That moment comes at the Saône River. The Helvetii reach the Saône, RR, and begin crossing it with extraordinary order. Their engineers and craftsmen build rafts and pontoon bridges. For days, the river carries the weight of their wagons and their people. By the time Caesar arrives, almost 3/4 of the Helvetii have crossed. Only 1 canton remains on the eastern bank, the Tigurini. Caesar's scouts point them out at dawn. Their camp is exposed, their wagons still half laden, their warriors dispersed in the business of crossing. It is the sort of vulnerability you see once in a campaign, if fortune is kind. Caesar does not let fortune cool. He orders the 10th Legion forward in silence. No war cries, no horns, just the muffled stamp of sandals in wet grass, shields knocking softly as men tighten ranks. They crash into the Tigerini camp like a collapsing roof. The Helvetii warriors scramble for weapons, but too late. Roman pila slam into shields and bodies. Cohorts wedge into the chaos, carving corridors through tents and wagons. The riverbank becomes a slaughterhouse. Bodies tumbling into the water, blood blurring into the current. Caesar is not only winning a skirmish, he is rewriting the Helveti's understanding of Rome. They had imagined Roman resistance as border obstruction, a wall, a refusal, a nuisance. This is pursuit. This is annihilation on the march. The Tigerini are shattered. Survivors flee into woods. The Helvetii across the river are stunned to see the smoke, to hear the distant screams, to watch the remnants of 1/4 of their people vanish. Caesar pauses long enough to make it count. He sends envoys to the Helvetii leadership. Surrender, return home, or be destroyed. The Helvetii chiefs respond with pride and anger. They offer terms as equals. Caesar refuses their framing. He wants hostages, reparations to allied tribes, and a halt to movement. The Helvetii stall, hoping time is on their side. But Caesar is already building another weapon, a bridge over the Saône, so his legions can cross and stay alongside the column. The construction is fast and loud, a public threat. Trees are felled, piles driven, planks hammered down, while Helvetii scouts watch. In less than a day, the Roman army is on the western bank, in marching formation, dust rising behind them like storm clouds. The Helvetii begin moving faster, their wagons straining, their cattle lowing in confusion, their rear guards harassed by Roman cavalry. For weeks, the two forces travel like this. Helvetii moving west toward the lands they want. Romans moving parallel. Close enough to strike, too strong to ignore. Every night the Romans fortify camps as routine. Every morning they dismantle and march. The Helvetii are not used to enemies who build cities overnight and abandon them at dawn. Skirmishes flare along the road. Helvetii cavalry clash with Roman auxiliaries. Foraging parties are ambushed, fields fought over like patches of treasure. Caesar learns quickly that this is not a horde of refugees. Helvetii warriors fight with discipline of their own, in tight shield formations, wielding long thrusting spears. Their chiefs keep the column together under pressure that would scatter lesser people. Still, pressure is pressure. Supplies run thin. Caesar must feed a large army in a land already being stripped by the migration. His Gallic allies falter. Some delay deliveries, others hedge their loyalty, waiting to see which way the wind of power will blow. Caesar sends Labienus to seize grain where he must, but even iron hands need iron bread. He makes a decision. Turn toward the Aedui, Rome's longtime allies in central Gaul, and demand full provisioning. He expects compliance. He gets excuses. It is the first moment Caesar feels the undercurrent of Gaul itself. Not just migrating Helvetii, but a landscape of tribes with their own rivalries, fears, and ambitions. The Aedui are slow because they are nervous. Helping Caesar too fully might make them targets if he loses. Caesar understands this calculus immediately. He will not allow it. He marches to their chief council, and in front of their leaders he speaks like a man who knows he is being watched by history. He reminds them of treaties. He reminds them who protects whom. He hints coldly that Rome is not patient with double games. The Aedui promise supplies and finally deliver them. The Helvetii, seeing Caesar turn toward Aedui territory, misread the shift. They think he is weakening, diverted by local politics. Their chiefs decide to stop running and offer battle on ground they choose, a wide slope near the hill fort of Bibract. They believe they can break Caesar now, before he grows deeper roots in Gaul. Caesar sees their line forming and feels the campaign's first true climax rising like heat. The chase is over. The war is about to become a single day. Section 3. The Battle of Bibract, June 58 BC. Near Bibract, in Aedui country. The morning breaks bright, cutting hard shadows across the hills. Caesar rides along his line, the red of his commander's cloak snapping in the wind. Below him, Roman legions assemble in a familiar geometry. Cohorts spaced with breathing room, standards held high, centurions barking corrections. The men are tired from weeks of marching. But this is the kind of exhaustion they understand, the kind that turns into rage the moment a horn sounds. Across the valley, the Helvetii are not a shapeless mass. They form in a huge, dense block, wagons drawn into a defensive ring behind them, like a wooden fortress for their families. Their warriors lock shields edge to edge, spears angling forward. Chiefs walk the line, touching shoulders, speaking the old language of courage. They do not fight for conquest today. They fight for the right to continue existing on their chosen road. Caesar makes his choices with the quiet of a gambler who counts cards. He places his cavalry and auxiliaries on the wings, but he does not lean on them. He knows Helvetii horse are fierce, and that the core of this battle will be infantry grinding into infantry. He orders his legions up the slope so they hold the high ground. Behind the front two lines, he stations a third, held in reserve. It is a classic Roman depth formation, designed to absorb shock and then turn it back. The Helvetii begin the ascent. Their mass moves uphill like a living wall, shields flashing, feet pounding earth in unison. The sound is terrifying, not individual screams, but the roar of thousands breathing the same breath. Roman soldiers tighten their grips. Centurions shout for silence until the moment. Then Caesar raises his arm. A forest of pila arcs into the sky and drops into the Helvetii front. Heavy iron shanks punch through shields, bend on impact, and pin boards uselessly to forearms. Helvetii warriors are forced to discard shields or fight anchored to dead weight. The Roman line surges forward immediately after the volley, swords drawn, stepping into the chaos while the Helvetii are still reacting. The clash is violent and intimate. Roman gladies stab low into bellies and thighs. Helvetii blades swing broader, chopping down on helmets and shoulders. Dust rises so thick it turns morning into a brown fog. Men slip in blood and trample each other without seeing whom they step on. Standards sway as bearers fall and are replaced. For a while, the Helvetii press hard. Their mass gives them momentum. The Roman front buckles in places, cohorts giving ground a few steps, then bracing again. Caesar rides to the hottest points, dismounting at one moment to stand among the men, a commander where soldiers can see his face. He does not shout poetry. He shouts simple things: hold, push, remember who you are. The Aedui allies watch from nearby ridges, uneasy. This is their land, their fate, but not entirely their fight. Some will later say their hesitation nearly cost Caesar the day. Caesar does not rely on their courage. He relies on Roman discipline. After hours of fighting, the Helvetii front begins to fray. Their pinned shields have thinned their defense. Their uphill push bleeds their strength. Roman cohorts rotate fresh men forward, keeping pressure constant. Eventually, the Helvetii line shudders and starts to fall back toward their wagon ring. Caesar senses the moment and drives for it. The second line surges through gaps, widening the retreat into a tide. The Helvetii reach their wagons and turn to make a last stand among the carts. Women and children behind them, screaming, throwing stones, dragging wounded away. Then something dangerous happens. A fresh group of Helvetii, the Boii and Tulingi allied contingents, swings in and strikes the Roman right flank. For a heartbeat, the Romans are caught between retreating enemies ahead and new ones crashing sideways. You can feel the battle's balance wobble. Caesar's reserve line moves. The third line, held back all day, steps forward in perfect order. Wheeling to meet the flank attack, their shields lock, their pila fire at close range, and the momentum of the Helvetii counterstroke breaks like surf against a cliff. The reserve does what reserves are meant to do. It saves the day before it is fully understood to be in danger. Now the fight becomes a slaughter inside the wagon ring. Roman soldiers pry apart carts, haul defenders down, and drive them backward with relentless stabbing. The Helvetii fight to the last because there is nowhere else to go. Their families are there. Their future is there. Their burned homes are behind them, like ghosts. By late afternoon, Helvetii resistance collapses. Survivors scatter into the countryside, dragging what wagons they can. Caesar does not let them disappear. He orders pursuit, not for glory, but for certainty. For days, Roman cavalry and light infantry hunt remnants, cutting off routes, forcing surrender. When the Helvetii chiefs finally come to Caesar, they come not as equals, but as defeated men. They ask for mercy. Caesar gives a kind of mercy that serves Rome. He orders them to return to their homeland. Not because he pities them, but because an emptied Helvetian territory would invite Germanic tribes to spill into it, threatening Roman borders again. So the Helvetii are marched back east, a broken people retracing a road they had sworn never to walk. In Caesar's camp that night, torches burn low. The soldiers are exhausted, their armor blackened with sweat and dust, their hands shaking from hours of killing. But they are alive, and they have just witnessed something bigger than a battle. This was the first war of the Gallic campaigns, the opening act of a conquest that will reshape Western Europe. The Helvetii had wanted passage. Instead, they gave Caesar his doorway into history. And so, after 8 relentless years, Gaul was conquered. But the world was transformed. Caesar returned to Rome, not just with territory, but with the fame and loyalty that could shake the Republic itself. The forests and strongholds of Gaul opened the door to a new era and to the civil wars ahead. If you enjoyed this journey, like, subscribe, and join me next time as we uncover another turning point in Roman history.